What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to do something that's kind of requested a lot more than I actually expected it to be when I first got into this business. It's going to be a series of videos because it's going to take some time to show everything. But what it is, I'm going to show you from beginning to finish how to case mod a PlayStation 1 console. I'm not going to talk too much. People say I talk too much, so I'm going to try not to say too much besides what I need to say. I will say this is just an outer shell. This is where we're starting. As you can see, there's no console in here, it's just the shell. If you need to know how to open it up and get it to this point, I do have another video, and I will put a link in the description below. So if you need to get to this point, go ahead and click that link, and once you're done there, you can come back to this video. This is part one. What we're going to do in part one is I'm going to show you how to do the windows. I could show you how to do some windows right here. If you've seen some other case mods, you'll notice that some of them have little windows right here, but I'm not really going to go into that too, just for time. It's really the same concept. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get this the main window that most of them you see is going to be a big window right here. What we're going to do is I'm going to start out by showing you how to get this tray out of here and do your markings and everything, and then I'll show you actually how to go ahead and cut it and get the window in there and all that. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. What you'll need is I got a Phillips head screwdriver. I got just some old throwaway game. It could be any disc, really, just any disc whatsoever, and then a pencil. Alright, so first thing we're going to do, we're just going to take this apart. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. In fact, we're not even going to need the bottom half whatsoever. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take apart the hinges that hold that little disc door or tray or however you want to call it. It's really simple. All you got to do is there's two screws on each side that hold the mechanisms in. So we're just going to unscrew both of those screws. And then I'm going to have a little tray here. It's like an old applesauce cup. And that's where I'm going to put the screws and the springs and all this little mechanism stuff. You definitely want to keep that stuff straight because it can definitely get screwed up. So I'm just going to be throwing everything in there. Now, to get these little things out, there's a little prong that attaches the door to this, so you got to kind of wiggle it out until it gets out. You got to kind of play with it, especially if it's your first time. Next, this one's a little bit more tricky because you got the spring system and everything too. So that one pops out about the same. It's just that spring gets in the way, and the spring is in here. So you're going to take that out too. And I will show you how to put the door back on later. It is kind of tricky. It's not difficult, it just takes a little bit of maneuvering. And as you can see, now we got the tray by itself. Okay, so this I'm not even going to do anything else with it because there's just nothing else to do. And for the rest of this part of the tutorial anyways, there's nothing left to do. Alright. Now we got the tray left, and this is where the little game disc comes in. It just makes it easier. I mean, I know you can probably get a protractor or whatever it's called and just draw an even circle and everything. But this way it's a little bit easier and quicker, I feel like. All you need to do is just center it. You know, I mean, if you want to measure it out, you can. But it's really not that difficult to eyeball it and get it centered. And then just hold it down firmly and take your pencil and trace around it. You want to do it nice and dark, okay? Don't worry about anything later because you could sand it, especially if you're going to paint it. But you want to have it dark because sometimes you can, if it's not dark enough, you'll miss your lines when you do the actual cutout part of this. Alright, so that's that, and it's pretty much centered. Let's see if I can do like that. Now you can see I've got it pretty much centered and everything. And the next part is I'm gonna show you how to actually go ahead and cut this out. Now you will need a Dremel tool. There might be other ways to do this. You might, if you have a really nice jigsaw, maybe even maybe band saws, maybe there's some other little tools out there. Feel free to comment and share with other people if you found other tools that work. But Dremel is a pretty common tool for case modding. So this is going to cut out for a second because I got to get it set up and get my Dremel tool set up and everything. So I'll be back in just a sec. Alright guys, I've got my Dremel over here and got it hooked up and everything. I am going to go through and show you what you need because you can't just use a Dremel on any old thing. So that way you can kind of understand what I'm doing. Here's my Dremel tool right here. The next thing you'll need, and I would not suggest doing it without this. I mean, you could try, but you're probably going to screw it up. It's kind of like, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's definitely meant just for cutting stuff like this. So you're definitely going to need that. And then you'll need, I use these little, they're kind of just multi-purpose bits. Oh. Alright, sorry about that. I dropped my bit down under the box that this camera sits on. So anyways, this is the bit. It may be kind of hard to see, I don't know. Try to get a few different angles. But anyway, so what you got to do is you just got to get the bit in the tip of it. About like that. Then we're going to tighten it up. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get this that I was talking about and screw it on there. Now, to make this easy, you see how much that sticks out? Maybe about 3/4 of an inch. You don't want quite that much. At most, you want about 1/8 of an inch more than the thickness of what you're cutting through. And so this is not very thick. So what you want to do is, I don't ever go by these little, there's measurements on here, but they're garbage. And it also depends on how deep you put that bit. So what you're going to do is we're going to just adjust it as best we can. And if it's too much, that's okay, but the less you have, the better, and the less chance you take on breaking it. Alright. See, I didn't get to adjust it much just because it's already pretty high out there. And I could take it back apart and push the bit down in there a little bit more and then reattach it, but for time's sake, I'm just going to do it this way. Alright, so the way this gets started is you start somewhere in the middle. Don't ever start on the outside, obviously, because you're going to screw it up, because you're cutting out this centerpiece. The centerpiece is going to fall out when you're done. So you just kind of start in the middle somewhere, and then you go around, all the way around, and get it rough. Now, it's going to be rough. Don't worry about that. We are going to use some sanding attachments to sand it and clean it up. And so, yeah, it's going to be rough. Just don't worry about having to get it perfect. All you want to do is just make sure you don't screw it up and let it jerk, because it will jerk. So you want to hold it tight and hold it firm down, because if it jerks, it's going to screw everything up, and you're going to have to try to either figure out a way to fix it or start all over. So just make sure to hold it firm on there and to hold this firm and not let it jerk, because it will catch. Alright, so I'm not going to be able to talk much now, so you're just going to have to kind of watch as I do it. One other thing I will say real quick, don't cut it right on the line. Leave a little bit of space for whenever we get the sanders, and that way we can clean it up and not mess that line up. there's that. You see it popped out. And you see how jagged it is. It's definitely not even at all, but you can still see my pencil line. And that's what I was talking about a minute ago. That way you can still use the pencil line while you sand. And see, like that big jagged part? That's right where I started. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to the sanding attachment. And what it is it's a little thing like this. And it's kind of like a sanding belt, I guess you could say. Let's see if I can get a better angle. It's kind of shadowy, but I'm pretty sure if you've got a Dremel, you know what I'm talking about. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all these attachments off this Dremel for the cutting. Which I'm kind of doing off camera, since you probably don't need to know how. Now this part is a little bit simpler. All we're doing is we're just cleaning everything up, okay? We're getting the jagged edges up. We're making it a full circle now, and we're gonna use the line we originally made, and we're just gonna go all the way to that line now. And that's really all there is to it. I'll do a little bit of this. If it takes me a little longer, I'm gonna cut it off and just finish it up. That way you're not sitting here bored watching me do this for 10 or 15 minutes. So anyways, here's this. Now there's really no trick to this. You just got to be easy. Don't just shove it in there and jam it in there. Just kind of lightly take off little layers at a time. Now when you're doing a circle like this, I also will say, don't sit there and just go one little place at a time all the way to the line. You want to kind of go like this. Hit it in little strides. Because if you just stay in one place, you'll dig into it and it'll mess it up. So if you do it like that, you'll keep the circle clean, you'll make sure the circle stays a circle like it's supposed to be, and it'll just go a lot better for you. Alright, so I'm going to finish this up off camera, but you kind of get it. You don't want to stay in one place because you're just as much melting the plastic as you are sanding it. So that's the key to it, is that you don't want to keep it in one place because you end up with these big balls of melted crap everywhere, and you can end up digging into it real bad. So let me finish this off camera, and I'll be back with you in just a sec. Alright guys, I've got the Dremel sanding done. Let me get a little close-up. If you notice, it's still a tiny bit rough, but we're not completely done yet. But it's not all jagged and real rough looking like it was before. It's overall pretty clean, and the circle is pretty much complete. The last thing we're really going to do with this is we just want to get some sandpaper. Really doesn't matter what grit. You don't want anything super fine, like you know, anything 180 or less would be great. But anything over that, it's just going to take you forever. And the whole point of this is sometimes there'll be a little scraggly stuff, and so you're getting that up, and you're making sure that the circle is perfectly good for any of those just little small itty-bitty spots that would be really hard for you to get out with just that Dremel sander. So you're just going through here, and also you want to, don't hold it flat, angle it. That way you'll also kind of hit this corner and round this corner a little bit. It'll make it look a lot cleaner. And if there's any little mess-ups or uneven places, it'll also kind of help hide some of that. Because sometimes, and some of you after doing the part with the Dremel before may have found out that you can dig it out more just trying to get a little itty-bitty place out of it. So this is how you get those little small places out. All I'm doing is I'm just going around, getting it pretty good, rounding off the top corner a little bit. And this is also, there will be little small pieces of plastic left over. And so this will also get some of those little small pieces out of the way and get everything real nice and clean and finished looking. Alright. Now you're probably going to have to sand it more than I did, but I've done this quite a bit so I can get it pretty clean with the Dremel by itself. That's just really, on your first couple times, you probably are going to have to hit this pretty hard. Now, sometimes when you're doing the Dremel, there will be plastic pieces underneath that you'll have to remove, but that's the good thing, cool thing about PS1 is that you really don't. You really don't have to do that. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to go ahead and do the plexiglass part. I'm going to cut this out and get everything ready for the plexiglass for the window. And then I'm going to do that next, and that'll be the last little segment for this part 1. Alright guys, I've got the plexiglass here and this, but that's going to be part 2 of the segment I've decided, because I realized the first part's already about 15 minutes long or so worth of video, unedited video. So I'm just going to add this little end part on here. The second part is going to be just putting this plexiglass in and getting it attached and getting that ready. The third part is going to be all about LEDs, getting the LED lights installed, and then the fourth part is going to be getting everything put together, getting everything assembled, and getting it finished up. So I will make a playlist of this, and I'm also going to go ahead and put all the links in the description for all the parts, part 1 through 4 on each video. The one thing I am going to say is I'm not going to paint. If you want to paint, you're going to kind of have to figure that out on your own. There's a lot to it, and I just kind of frankly don't feel like going through that, especially since I've done a couple painting tutorials already. So if you just have no clue how to paint, check out maybe the tutorial on how to paint your Xbox 360. It's basically the same concepts, same techniques you need to use to paint this. It's just a different console, and there's some different little things you got to do. But anyways, that's going to be the end of this first part. Make sure to check out the second part so you can continue on and learn how to mod your PS1. Thank you guys.